I don't know anything about politics. I come home and I ask my mom, I said, Mom, are we Republicans or are we Democrats? And my mom says, we're Democrats. She says, because the Democrats are for the poor and Republicans are for the rich. I said, huh. I said, you know what, Mom? She says, what? I said, when I grow up, I want to be a Republican. I was born to a communist mother and a capitalist, imperialist father. One side of my family would always talk about the fact that rich people are greedy, and the other side of the family would talk about that poor people are lazy. And both of them were both right and wrong. You know, there's greedy rich people and there is greedy poor people. And I know a lot of lazy poor people, and I also know hardworking poor people who have the wrong mindset. So anyways, we escaped. I lived in Germany for 2 years at a refugee camp, which I got the first taste of entrepreneurship there. A Super Nintendo, Super Mario Brothers 2 was coming out. And there was a guy in the refugee camp, his name was Jan Staff. He's no longer here with us. He had a sister who was gorgeous, and I was in love with this girl. And I was 11 years old. I'm like, I got to figure out a way to spend more time with this girl. So I talked to the Jan. Jan was 4 years older than me, and I realized Jan liked video games. And so I said, if I buy Super Nintendo, he can play Super Nintendo and I can play with his sister. This is a great deal. I was 11 or 12 at the time. She was 10 or 11. We were both kids, clueless. So I went to the local swimming pool, and Germans like to drink and they like to party. And it was the year when they won the World Cup. So I went to the local swimming pool and I said, look, you got beer bottles and beer, cans everywhere here. What if I bring this up to you and I clean it up? I talked to the owner. He said, I'll give you 5 pfennig per. I cleaned house with his pool every day. Eventually I gathered 250 marks, which is what it cost for me to buy that Super Nintendo. I went to Kaufhof, which Kaufhof is like our Sears. And I went to Kaufhof and I bought the Super Mario Brothers, Super Nintendo. I brought it back to the refugee camp. I was a hero. Everybody was playing with the video games. And I asked Katarina, let's go spend some time together, and we go to the park. That was my first experience about entrepreneurship, that you can make the money out there. Money's out there. There's many ways to make the money. You got to go ask and create some kind of value for you to make it. Then came to the States at 12 years old, Glendale, California. And was there for 6 years, then went to the Army. Then a day before 9/11, I started working at Morgan Stanley Dean Witter as a stockbroker. Got my Series 7, 66, 31, 26 as a 21-year-old. I was the youngest broker they hired. And then I went to Transamerica for 7.5 years, and I started my own insurance company. And the rest is history. But it just validates that, how often, like the other day, we're doing research today on politics, and we were watching a lot of old JFK interviews, and I want to read something to you that JFK said in regards to taxes. So, most people think about taxes and like, well, we got to tax the rich, we got to tax the rich, we got to tax the rich. It's not fair, the fact that they don't pay enough taxes. Here's what Kennedy once said. On September 18th, 1963, Kennedy said, a tax cut means higher family income and higher business profits and a balanced federal budget. A tax cut means a balanced federal budget, said by a Democratic president. Every taxpayer and his family will have more money left over after taxes for a new car, a new home, new conveniences, education, investment. Every businessman can keep a higher percentage of his profits in his cash register or put it to work expanding or improving his business. And as the national income grows, the federal government will ultimately end up with more revenues, said JFK. How weird is that a JFK would today potentially be considered a Republican or a libertarian, but he understood business? Because when it comes down to business, I was a kid. Robert, my mom, I was 13 years old, 14 years old, going to Glendale High School. My economics teacher, my history teacher, starts talking about Democrats, Republicans, Independents. I don't know anything about politics. I come home and I ask my mom, I said, Mom, are we Republicans or are we Democrats? And my mom says, we're Democrats. I said, okay, cool. I said, can you tell me why we're Democrats? She says, because the Democrats are for the poor and Republicans are for the rich. I said, huh. I said, you know what, Mom? She says, what? I said, when I grow up, I want to be a Republican. She said, what do you mean? I said, I hate being rich. I hate being poor. It sucks being poor. I didn't know what Republican meant. What I try to say is, I don't want lunch ticket. I hate welfare checks. I don't want to feel like I'm weak and I'm holding a conference call yesterday. One of my guys started talking about the fact that my sales guys don't listen to me. They're not working that hard. What do I do about this? And he's got this voice about himself. I said, stop sounding helpless. You are not helpless. Why do you sound helpless? If you're helpless, the world identifies you as being helpless. I said, can you talk? Yes. Do you speak more than one language? Yes. Can you hear me? Yes. Can you see me? Yes. If you touch me, will you feel me? Yes. Can you taste food? Yes. Can you hear music? Yes. You're so gifted. You don't need to feel helpless. This helpless mentality is so unattractive. Nobody likes a helpless mentality. So half the battle is, for folks that sometimes are coming from other countries and we're immigrants, your family, my family, when you come to a country like this, I was speaking at a school last week and one of the guys got up on stage and he felt like guilty talking about America's the greatest country in the world. He says, look, we're not perfect, but we are one of the best countries in the world. And I'm like, how do I say something without stepping on this guy because he's the headmaster? So I get up on stage, I say, well, first of all, let me applaud the headmaster, fantastic message. Thank you for your service. But, from a guy that lived in Iran for 10 years, 2 years in Germany at a refugee camp, and I haven't been in America, served the military, gone from being poor to middle income, to low income, to upper class, to, now worth a few hundred, whatever where I'm at this phase of my life at 43. I said, I'm here to tell you America is the greatest country in the world. Not one of the greatest, not a top 10 greatest, not top 5. It is the greatest country in the world. And one guy says, how do you measure the greatest country in the world? I said, it's very simple for me. He said, well, how do you do it? I said, well, here's a question for you. He says, what's that? I said, before I give you my measurement, you tell me how you measure. Well, I think it's based on happiness. How do you measure happiness? You want to be happy? Go on an island, go to Belize. You'll be happy. Does that mean Belize is the best country in the world? Well, no. I guess the best country in the world is the fact that the country is very transparent. Okay, let's just say you're my country. We're broke. We have nothing. We have a weak military. And I transparently tell you we're broke. We have no military, no business. Everyone's dying. But I'm transparent. Does that mean it's the greatest country in the world? Well, I guess it's not. So how do you judge a great country? So we're going back and forth, back and forth. Finally, I said, let me change it for you and ask you a question. They said, what's that? I said, how do you judge a great restaurant? She says, reviews? I said, okay, that's one way. I said, well, let me ask you this. It's 12 o'clock lunchtime, weekday. You go to a restaurant, okay? Say four of us go to a restaurant and at 12:15, you're sitting there for 15 minutes. The place has got 40 tables. You're the only table there, lunchtime, busy. All the other restaurants around you are busy, but this one's not. What do you do 15 minutes into it? You're like, guys, we're probably at a bad restaurant. Let's get up and walk out. You leave, right? He says, yes. I said, now what do you do when you go to a restaurant and you walk in, there's a 20-minute wait, there's 200 people inside, and any day you go during lunchtime is packed. What do you say about that restaurant? That's a great restaurant.